Now listen up, one of my favorite things about Marvel Rivals is the wide variety range in difficulty terms for the now 35 different heroes we have within the game. Some are so easy that you pick up once you're ready to 1v6 that entire team, let them come at you. Whereas others, you're not mastering until Marvel Rivals 2 comes out. Please, for the love of God, no Marvel Rivals 2. But hey guys, new season, new you, am I right? Maybe this is finally the time you pick up and you master Black Panther, maybe Spider-Man, or you sit back and you press that one button and you let Scarlet Witch do the rest for you. No judgment. Alrighty guys, so to judge all this, we have this graph with two different bars. The bottom bar there going from green for easy and red to hard is going to represent our skill floor of a hero. Essentially the minimum skill required to play decently for a newer player of said hero. Is this hero easy to play for the first time and be effective? Would I recommend this hero to a brand new player? Might this hero perform well in low elo? And how fast can you learn the hero to help your team succeed is a lot of the metrics we're looking at. In short, how easy is the hero to pick up and do pretty good? But our bar over on the left-hand side, the vertical one, is our skill ceiling. Now, our skill ceiling is the limit or lack thereof on how good can you get at a given hero with enough practice. With all the time in the world, how much is there to learn and master with said hero, and how hard is it to play with them at the maximum capacity? How difficult is it to maximize this hero's potential at the highest level, and might this hero have significant performance difference dependent on the elo, aka the skill of the player? Again, in a nutshell, high skill ceiling means that exceptional skill players can continue to get better and more value as they improve. So like, how hard's the hero? Now jumping in, we start with Adam Warlock. This is going to be our first support and our first aim dependent hero. Since aiming is a skill you can essentially learn infinitely, and for a pretty big lack in overall abilities, he doesn't have a constant source of healing, he has no form of an escape, and his ultimate is not going to keep everybody alive. It can revive them, but it won't keep them alive. So I actually have a ceiling quite high, with the majority of that reliant on obviously perfecting his aim, which would make you way better on Adam Warlock. Moving on, we got Black Panther, King of Wakanda, another insanely high skill ceiling character. Pretty much everything about this guy is going to reward you the more you play him, from learning his timing of his mark resets, to his cooldowns, to the health of both you and your enemies. Being a solo player relying on health packs, the dude is tough and it takes some extra commitment, but if you do so, you can quite literally become a solo carry on Black Panther. I would say one of the highest floors and ceilings within all the rivals, which takes us to Black Widow. Listen, I know we have a lot of high skill ceilings to start out, and I can't help how the rivals alphabet works, but Widow has proven to be insanely difficult hero to master within rivals. Yes, you're mainly on the scope in, scope out duty, but the sheer requirement of aim mixed in with self-defense with her kicks and playstyle has Widow right alongside the top next to Adam. Again, a character that's going to reward you the more you practice and the better you get. Her ceiling is pretty damn high. All right, Bruce Banner, the Hulk, one of the single hardest heroes to not only learn in rivals, but also to be obviously extremely effective. I've talked to legit the best players in rivals who solo main the Hulk, and they are still learning things as they continue to practice the big green guy. And no, for the floor, we're not just talking about the guy who lays on his sword for the team so Iron Man can get his Death Star beam, but more just being effective with the Hulk in general at a low level, disrupting and diving, managing his cooldowns. Because if you jump in and you beat down some people and die, you become more of an old battery than a help to the team. Again, with the alphabetical order, pretty lopsided, but we do move to Captain America, who doesn't change things all too much because, well, Captain America, he does seem relatively simplistic, but Steve Rogers is a bit harder to play than just about any tank outside of probably the Hulk himself. His kit is reliant on combos, getting in and out, and even though his survivability is kind of built into his package, to be the true leader that Cap is and providing that consistent source of damage, disruption, and diving on their supports, and just the overall mastery of his combos and cooldowns, Cap's skill ceiling is, again, pretty damn high. Those that practice will be rewarded. Alrighty guys, next up is Cloak and Dagger. They've got auto aim on either Cloak or Dagger, so right away pretty beginner friendly, and their abilities are quite simple as well for the most part. You are playing two heroes for one selection, so it will take a little bit of mastery for phasing people with Cloak properly, or just getting down the way that you heal to the highest effectiveness, or switch and deal damage when needed. But there is an overall limit to just how much skill Cloak and Dagger do take after a good amount of seeing the hero in action and played between different elos. If you're a console player, if you're kind of newer to the game, I recommend playing Cloak and Dagger. Pick them up, play a couple games, you'll get the hang of switching in and out of them, and you can take their ceiling relatively high. All right, so just about dead middle of the entire graph, we got Doctor Strange. And although he does hold up a big shield and he presses fire, There's a lot going on with this guy, especially to get mechanics down right, to lead your team into victory, to get good damage, and the proper use of just learning his overall abilities. In the early game, you're going to learn to cloak up against a Hela and easy things like that, but he actually has a lot of complexity to him the better you get at rivals and the higher you get throughout the ranks. From crazy ultimate tech to just the way that you can pump the machine gun of damage, the dead middle of this graph feels about right. Next up, we have Groot, who is going to be just under Captain America for the use of his walls and his wall tech to do damage and obviously properly block opponents' attacks, block their supports from healing their team, or just to close off a tank. There's a lot going on with this guy, and if you're trying to jump into tank, he might not be the best option to just go in right away with. But what's great about this too is you can continue to get better with him because he does have a relatively high skill ceiling. It is a lot of wall placement and just timing up your ult correctly, but you'll be surprised that there's a good amount to learn on the hero. With enough time, you'll be a master of his thorn walls with the melee damage and his spore bomb. There's so much going on with this guy, and I'm excited for people to learn him. I talked to some of the top 100 players while making this graph, and a lot of them said the same thing. They don't fear a lot of people that have mastered a tank, but there are some Groots out there that can carry games. All right, next up is the archer in Hawkeye, and he is going to go right up there with the other aim-dependent skill ceiling heroes, but he's not too hard to pick up and get things going, right? He doesn't have an escape, so that makes it a bit tough, and you got to know what you're doing when it comes to aiming, but it's pretty forgiving with his hitbox and just how much damage you can pump out. Just learning the basics of staying kind of with your team or getting a high ground approach, and you click and shoot. But of course, if you want to master the guy, getting that aim to perfection is what you're looking for. Now, next up, very similar character in Hela with a much better ultimate that doesn't take as long to master and a bit more forgiveness with her kit. You've got an escape, you have a way to slow, and you're doing about the same damage. And I would say her overall team up is just going to be better around the board. So Hela is, again, skill ceiling about the same as Hawkeye in these aim-dependent heroes, but she's much easier to just kind of pick up and know what you're doing. Like, even if you're not the best, just get to that ultimate, and you should be able to make somewhat of a difference with Hela. All right, Season 1, brand new hero in Invisible Woman. Where does she go? And honestly, guys, I'm going to put her pretty damn high in both metrics. I think that it takes a decent amount of skill to get her shielding down right and to be effective with her. Everybody likes to play the new hero, but to get the most out of her, to use her cooldowns the right way, to heal properly, and then, of course, her powerful ultimate, making sure you get the right use out of it. I think Invisible Woman, because of the way her shields work, has an extremely high skill ceiling and pretty good floor as well, because she's just not as plug-and playable and easy to learn and welcoming as the other supports. Alrighty, next up is Iron Fist, who has probably one of the most simplistic ability kits in the game, and it's one of the strongest, just pure kicking and punching wise. Iron Fist doesn't take all that much to kind of pick up and know what you're doing. You punch the supports, you punch the tanks right, you know, you use your defense ability correctly. But I'll be damned, I've seen some Iron Fists that are playing a way different game than Marvel rivals than I am. Like, you can just tell these guys are just binge watching Necros on stream, or the Genji mains. There's some Iron Fists that are much better than others, to put it lightly, and the ceiling for this guy does go up. His mobility, his timing, his closing in on the target correctly, and using his abilities to perfection takes a lot of skill and practice, and is close to, if not right there, with Black Panther. One of these days, we got to do like a comparison between bronze and then like the top tier players, just to see what they look like. Alrighty, next up is Iron Man, and definitely has been proven to be one of the better heroes within rivals. But if you fly up in the sky, odds are you're gonna die, especially before you get to pick ban within rank play to get rid of those Helas and Hawkeyes. You need to learn how to play behind coverage and know when to go in, go out, how to rely on health packs. If you're an Iron Man begging for health, probably not doing it right. So using his jetpacks effectively, learning just how to get the maximum damage from his missiles, and then of course his cheeky ultimate for the team wipes. I think this guy takes some time to actually get him down to a pretty effective level at a skill floor. I will say, if you got the Hulk team up, it goes down a little bit. You just hold the green beam, does a lot for the team no matter what. And because of the ins and outs on how to properly get coverage as the hero, it does take some time to learn, so I do have his skill ceiling relatively in the middle. All right, guys, Jeff the Baby Land Shark, listen up. Jeff is one of the easiest heroes to play in Rivals. You know, listen, You spit some bubbles, you spit your water. There's not a lot going on how to get the basics of him down. And listen, people are saying he was created for millennials as an industry plant, and I can't disagree. Jeff is warm, he's welcoming, he's the most played hero in all of quick play. If we do look at the hero hot list, all in all, he's pretty easy to get the hang of. And I've got him, a little bit below Iron Man in the skill ceiling. He's not way up there, but he's also not towards the absolute bottom. Getting use of his bubbles, lining it up before his ultimate, or just properly getting the most effectiveness out of him does take some time, and I don't want to discredit these Jeff mains that have really perfected the Shark. But he's still amongst more of the easiest to learn within the game. All right, next up we have Loki, who I have as the highest skill ceiling support in all of the game, and pretty far up there in the skill floor. It takes a little bit of time to get all of his abilities. If you just hold F1, you can see just how many abilities this guy does have. But to use his clones the right way, to save his rune stones, to know when to go offense or defense, when to heal, when to damage, and on top of it, learning all the ultimates in the game and how to use them effectively. Now you can take this down a little bit by just learning some of the support ultimates like Luna's and learning those characters. But when you transform, learning how to play that hero, this takes a lot of skill and it takes some time to perfect him. It took me a damn near full season and getting his, alternate avatar to feel extremely comfortable that I was providing a lot of overall value to my team outside of just picking, an easier support like Luna. But make no mistake, guys, if you learn Loki, you will be rewarded. This guy has an absolute massive ceiling and his floor is pretty high as well. He's not for those that want to just pick up and play, but if you learn how to get good at him, his damage and his healing can be honestly game-changing. Which takes us to Luna Snow. All right, so your first place strategist, who do you play? There's a couple of picks, and Luna Snow is amongst the best of them. You fire at a target to heal, and you fire at your target to deal damage. Now, there is some complexity with her freeze and with her guard and making sure that you use your ultimate the right way, but Luna is extremely beginner-friendly, and you can kind of learn everything you need to know about her if you play her a good amount. You don't have to spend hours and hours and hours perfecting the character because her ceiling isn't all that high. Again, I want to make sure people know this doesn't mean she's bad. If you don't have a high skill ceiling, does not reflect how good a hero is, because clearly Luna is solid. Next up, guys, we got the Duelist in Magik. Just got my mastery guide out for her, and there is a lot going on with her combos and perfecting the character. Heck, just her passive of giving you health as you deal damage is something you can infinitely get better at with this character. Learning where and when to place demons, how to Dark Child correctly, when to flank, when to play kind of an off tank. There's a lot going on with Magik, which makes her skill ceiling through the roof in comparison to the other 35 heroes within the game. And she's also not exactly the easiest hero to pick up, in my opinion. I think that if you're trying to play Magik for the first time, it's a good idea to get a lot of quick play games under your belt. If you need some help on that, we got the best of the best to help us out. Go ahead and check this video up on screen now. All right, moving on, we have Magneto, who a couple of the top players have stated is the single best hero to climb with if you're solo playing. The guy's got it all. He's got survivability, decent damage, and a pretty solid ultimate. And I've got him pretty easy to learn as well. There's some complexity with his bubbles, and yes, learning who to bubble and where, when to protect your team, when to use your ultimate defensively or offensively, and who to target. There is some stuff there with his shielding in general, but compared to the other shield hero in Doctor Strange, it's a little bit easier to learn everything that Magneto's got to offer. All right, next up, guys, we got Mantis, who I wanted to put right around those other aim-dependent heroes. Obviously, the better the aim, the more you can do with her healing, but she does have a lot in her kit to kind of help you along the way. Her sleep is absolutely insane as a support if you've got a flank hero. Her ultimate is great to lead the team charge or to keep everybody alive. You can self-damage, you can put out... I mean, honestly, I probably could have put her higher on the skill ceiling in general. Mantis is a character that you can really play with and perfect her as you continue to get better and better with the ins and outs of her entire kit. One of the strongest supports in the game and is pretty easy to pick up overall as long as you have decent aim under your belt. All right, next is our second new hero in Mr. Fantastic, and I'll probably redo this list maybe at the beginning of Season 3 when we do have the two other new heroes. I don't like to rush this because I want some time for them to evolve in the meta, and I had him a bit higher, but almost every single top player told me to lower him, and that is going to be right around here for his skill ceiling and his floor. Pretty easy to pick him up and learn the basics of him and sucking up damage and bouncing up and down with his ultimate. It's really not that complex once you've played a couple games. but I would say he takes a fair amount of mastery if you really want to perfect what he does have to offer and grabbing different heroes and providing that support as that off tank, but really a tank for your team. I know that I've had Mr. Fantastics that has straight up carried our games because he's playing that hero in just a much better fashion than I've seen before. Pretty beginner friendly and someone that can reward you if you spend the time. All right, guys, we're making nice progress here. We've got Moon Knight for our next duelist, and although he is relatively pretty easy to learn, I mean, placing his onks somewhat correctly so that the opponent doesn't just destroy it right away, and in lower elo, obviously, a lot of heroes love to group together, and they don't really know and understand the concept of how punishing Moon Knight can be. I think Moon Knight is in a good area, kind of right here in the somewhat left of the middle, especially now with how good his ultimate is, and really just getting a hang of his mobility and his survivability. He's got a big hitbox, and he's one of the worst duelists at handling a one-on-one duel, which can make him tough to learn, but you don't exactly need to know how to do perfect aiming with him, which is going to take his overall skill ceiling down a little bit, but there are other mechanics that you have to master if trying to perfect Moon Knight. All right, Namor, King of the Sea, Poseidon, Aquaman, I don't know, whatever you want to call him. He is obviously one of the easier characters to pick up in the game, right? You got to throw some of his Tritons and you throw down his Octopus, and they do a lot of the work for you. Of course, you need to keep them alive because, you know, people can kill them. But in low elos and in general, I would say Namor is pretty easy to pick up in general. If you're not familiar with hero shooters, maybe it'll take a little bit in his bubble and just learning to hover and throw those down. It takes a little bit of time, but really, guys, one of the easiest to learn. But with that, I do think he has some mastery behind him. There's definitely skill that you can learn on this guy for optimized turret placements and ult placements, combined with like small mechanical things like firing his ult fire to have his turrets fire direction even if you don't hit a target. There's a lot going on with him, even though he seems quite simplistic, but he's definitely not the highest. All right, next up, Peni Parker, and I love her from Marvel Rivals. Very cool hero to just learn and pick up and kind of get the ins and outs of her spider mines and learning good placements for them, and then also when to tie up an enemy Hulk charging in, combined with her infinite ammo and relatively pretty easy ultimate. She's relatively easy to pick up and play. But it's also easy to be a very bad Peni Parker at that. I mean, we've all played those maps where you've got someone wanting to lock Peni no matter what, and it's probably not the best idea. Now, a good Peni is a tremendous Peni, knowing when to place mines behind the enemy shields, and not only just placing the nest placement, but also knowing when to web, where to go, combined with use of her passive healing and stopping ultimates with her CC. Like, there's so much skill ceiling you could learn on this hero. Maybe not quite as much as someone like Magneto or Doctor Strange, but definitely up there. All right, next up we have the solo queen of duelists here in Psylocke. And listen, it'll take a little bit of time on, you know, how to get her damage out properly to reset your cooldowns and, you know, when to stealth, when to dash, who to use your ultimate on, like supports. But relatively a pretty easy hero to get up and learn how to play. I think a lot of people like to play the solo adventure anyway, and so a lot of people lean towards Psylocke. Her ultimate is extremely beginner friendly, as she can just nuke down support heroes, or at the very least have them use their ultimates. But separating the beginner Psylocks from the expert Psylocks, you'll notice a drastic difference on how they play the hero in all, from just health pack management to staying with the team to going out and getting the right picks at the right time, not dying, which I can't say enough. So although easy to pick up, very high skill ceiling. All right, next up, he gets the privilege as the easiest to master and the easiest to learn in Rocket Raccoon. And just because you're a Rocket player does not mean you're bad. I'm not saying he's bad. He's actually very good this season, in my opinion. However, every single top player, as well as myself, said the same thing. If you have someone who doesn't know how to play Rivals and they want to play Rivals, have them play Rocket and have them just press the heal button for the most part. Maybe it'll take 1 or 2 games to learn to put your gadget in a place that's, you know, somewhat hidden. Give your armor at the beginning of the game, you know, a little simple tech like that. But all of his abilities are extremely friendly. You can just shoot in the general direction. You can dash around for pretty good escape. You're hard to kill. And although for some reasons Rockets cannot grasp to put their infinite ammo down for their Punisher and Winter Soldier teammates, the guy is very easy to learn, and at that, probably pretty easy to master. Yes, there's some stuff with crawling around the payload and being scrappy and hard to kill, but that's the main bit of it. I mean, damn it, there was a guy that got to Grandmaster not firing a single bullet of damage as a Rocket, and he still got to one of the higher ranks within the game. Take no offense to it, Rocket players. He's very easy to learn and he's pretty easy to master. All right, next up is Scarlet Witch, who I have a little bit higher than Rocket in both categories. You do need to learn a relatively good positioning with her, but again, we do have a nice little auto aim going on with the hero. Her ultimate is always good. She does have percent damage as well, and so her kit in knowing who to go against and when not to die takes a little bit of a learning curve and getting that ultimate down to perfection. But all in all, it's pretty agreed upon that you can be good with her, but she's one of the easiest characters to play and, you know, maybe not the best at high elo. All right, next up is the embodiment of a skill ceiling in Spider-Man, and the devs have said it themselves. This is the guy that takes the most to master probably within all of Marvel Rivals. From his mobility to his animation canceling to his really squishiness when it comes to how easy he is to kill, to being completely self-sufficient, being by yourself, relying on health packs and zipping away, zipping to an opponent, getting the kill and getting out, followed by mastering his aiming, some of his weird tech in general. Spider-Man remains the hardest in the game. So I gotta say, for those in the comments, if you're playing with him in a high elo, tip of the cap to you. Which moves us on to Squirrel Girl. And guys, I'll say it, I love this character. I mean, just because they're easy to play doesn't mean you can't play them. I mean, on the escort map with the goats on Asgard, absolutely think this is one of the best offensive heroes for pressure and just putting out tons of damage, destroying shields and Groot walls and getting the squishies behind the line. I love her for the maps that people have to group together. But once you learn when and where to place her acorns and how to stun correctly, the squirrel was quite literally designed to be a super simple hero to play. I would say that her mastery is about the same as Rocket. I mean, there's not a ton of tech there to learn. She's a bit harder as a floor to get, the hang of her down. But make no mistake, guys, you can be freaking lethal with this chick. Okay, so we got 7 heroes left, and we go to Star-Lord, the Duelist. And I think this guy's actually pretty far up there in both mastery and his floor. He's not the easiest hero to pick up. Takes some aim and really knowledge, and his skills are a little bit wonky, and takes a lot of games to get his perfection of aim down with his reload of ammunition and when to peel, when to flank, and when to be with your team. Yes, his ultimate is auto aim, definitely not hard to learn, but everything around him, I think, is one of the harder things to learn. Talking to Super Gomez and talking to some of the better players within Rivals, they all agree Star-Lord does take some skill to learn, and the mastery is sky high for the hero. Now, it's crazy to think Storm can go from just one of the worst heroes in the game to, quite honestly, one of the better ones right now within the given meta. But damn it, she takes a lot to learn. Yes, you can fly up high and deal some damage with her now, and her ultimate is good. But to truly learn Storm the correct way, supporting your team with damage, with speed, making sure you're not too high, ensuring you don't die all the time, and pumping out that right damage takes skill. Whether you like it or not, you're going to have to really learn how to play her the right way if you want to truly maximize her full kit's potential. On top of that, Thor is a popular pick, so you get a whole nother ability you want to make sure that you kind of throw into your damage rotation. And because of that, being both a duelist and a support is why I'm going to rank her one of the highest duelists in both categories. But on the other side of things, we have Punisher. From the Call of Duty bros to the 007 GoldenEye players. Look at, if you played a gun game before, you know how to play the Punisher. He was built for this. And I am going to give some credit. You can learn some stuff with his grapple gun and getting high positioning and switching to that shotgun at the right time. But overall, both his floor and his ceiling is not the highest within the game. He is an aim-dependent hero, but you have an incredible damage team up with Rocket Raccoon. If you don't know what you're doing, whoever's better at aim, play Punisher. Rocket, throw that on the infinite ammo, and you can be able to do some incredible damage on the majority of games. His turret's legit. His ultimate's not too hard to figure out. His survivability maybe takes a little bit of time, and he's actually, half up the chart here in skill ceiling, which this placement is about where I feel like Marvel Rivals wanted Punisher to be out of all the heroes. All right, Thor, the God of Thunder, just a little bit above Magneto and a little bit below Doctor Strange. I do think that he takes some time to learn, and so he's kind of up there in the floor, just getting a use of his awakened state and his abilities and knowing what to do and when to do it. You don't have that big shield for protection, but as soon as you learn that, you are a bit gated, if you will, by his abilities. At high elo, everybody knows when to wait out his cooldowns and kind of what to do with Thor. And although he's good, and I would say he's very good in the middle ranks, he's not going to be the best at the high end, you know, pro play, top rank, top elo. But he does represent pretty much the damn near middle of the entire graph. Now for the last Vanguard, Venom. One of the easiest tanks to pick up, right? You swing around, you go down, you get some bonus health, and you do some disruption, which makes him relatively easy to pick up and play. But to master Venom, trust me, takes some time. Trust me, to know when to go in and not die and do it correctly to give your team the amount of time to make that push or to distract the supports, the DPS, whatever it might be, and the main center point of not dying while also dealing damage and getting that mobility down. Venom actually has a pretty high skill ceiling, believe it or not. I think the hero deserves more credit towards the skill ceiling side of things, but again, if you're just starting to learn Marvel Rivals, a great tank to just pick up and play. Now, Winter Soldier is going to be right up there with the other AIM heroes, but he has some abilities alongside it, learning when to do his claw and turn and pushing someone over to the side so your team can collapse on them, and perfecting the again, and not just wasting that ultimate. I would say Winter Soldier is right up there amongst the others. You know, his abilities don't have too much complexity, getting his bonus health and, you know, making sure you get the ins and outs of his passives down. Take a little bit of time, and this feels about the right spot for the soldier. And last but not least, we're on Wolverine, who obviously before I made the last season's edition of this very video was before we were all well aware of how good Wolverine is in his job as a tank. But quite truly, to be effective, even though you know your job is to be the tank shredder, takes some time, and some of the most time within Rivals, to perfect Wolverine and not just die. If you have bad healers, you're not going to live as Wolverine. You need to learn how to hunt your prey, use your cooldowns correctly, get in, get out, get that one tank kill, build up his passive, build up that rage, reset his passive to live more. There's so much going on with him, and the sky is the limit. We have seen Wolverines that are quite literally banned at all levels of top rank play, and then we've seen Wolverines that suck and they're terrible because it takes time to learn the hero. He's worth it. Go into quick play a ton. Problem is, not a lot of tanks in quick play, so he's not the easiest to learn in there either, but it's definitely one of the most rewarding heroes to learn in all the game. And there you guys have it. Still a little bit sick from the flu, so sorry if I was a bit off this video, but I wanted to provide you guys the ranking of every single hero from easiest to hardest, the skill floor to the skill ceiling, and of course, there's a million ways to argue all these heroes, and I would love to hear it all down below in the comment section. Love the conversation, love these videos, and as always, if you enjoy the content, be sure to subscribe as we're continuing to grow after my little bit of hiatus from YouTube from being sick. Anyway, guys, have a good one. Have a great one. Till the next one. Happy rivaling.